We are here to talk about LinkedGov, which is a collaborative project. LinkedGov started in the summer when the UK Treasury published coins data, which is combined online spending data for all of central government. And all the developers thought, fantastic, we get data, we can play with it, we can make great things. They jumped into the data to discover there were all kinds of code. Nobody knew what they meant. Program object codes, budget codes, acronyms. How do we find out what these things mean and what they pertain to? I work in government and found myself chatting to a friend of mine who was a part of the team that released that data. And she said, we're getting all these questions, and we don't have an easy way to be able to answer the questions about what the data means. And lots of people are asking the same questions. And I started thinking, they're all asking questions. Questions all belong to one piece of data. We might be able to create something that'll fix that. So that's what LinkedGov is meant to do.
Yeah. Who have we got in the room? Who's heard of XML? Hands in the air, please. Great, because people haven't put their hands up. So, okay. So one of the things that you find when you go and look at, say, data.gov is that there's lots of data there, but there's no guarantee that the data's in. Well, it might be in a PDF, it might be actually on a web page, it might be an RDF. And there's quite a hurdle there that if you're a developer or you're a business, what you really want is, great, at low risk, can I instantly go and start doing stuff with this? And the answer is no, you can't. And so one of the things with the absolute minimum guarantees you want to be able to do is to be able to say, look, here's all the data that's already out there in a machine-readable format. It might be a terrible machine-readable format, but it's a machine-readable format. And if you have questions about it, we'll help you fix that. We'll provide a mechanism that actually gets straight back to the civil servant and says, hello, you work at the Department of Work and Pensions, you've released a data set on this, and 5 developers have already asked, what on earth is X55? Because that's the thing that stumps you as a developer. You get to somewhere and you go, great, and now I have a big black hole and I have no idea where to go from here.
Right. So this is what we're after, getting all this data from all these different places and being able to pull it out in any format we want, whether we're talking about transport data, spending data, that hold us to the right, management data, health data, local government data, and have it be tidied, decrypted, human readable, and machine readable.
In a format of your choosing.
Right. Why is this a problem? Why don't we have this already? Well, part of it, as I mentioned with coins, is that a lot of the data does have codes and acronyms in it. Everyone in all parts of the public sector in the UK are under great pressure, and we're really grateful, to publish as quickly as they possibly can. And that's fantastic, but their teams are shrinking and they're dealing with smaller budgets and they don't have a whole lot of time to go through and clean up and annotate everything. So they're putting it out with a lot of codes and acronyms and things that don't necessarily make sense to anybody who's not a part of that team or that department or that local authority. It isn't usable if you're the developer trying to build an app out of it. Similarly, there's holes, there's some problems with the data. Some of what we're getting is meant to be sort of a rough draft, but it requires some cleaning before you can do anything with it. We are getting, as Glyn said, CSVs, XML, JSON, PDFs, Microsoft Word documents and tables, all kinds of different formats.
Please don't zip your files in non-standard formats and then put an Excel file inside of it. That doesn't help.
No, that's true. So again, if you're looking particularly at comparing or working with multiple data sets, there's some work required to be able to convert them into the same format, whatever that happens to be, before you can deal with information from 2 different organizations. And there's very little modeling going on. There's nothing to say that, for example, if my local authority publishes a table or a list of pothole locations, there's nothing to say which postcodes are in that local authority. But I know from another data set which postcodes belong to the local authority, so I can start drawing connections. And once we've linked those 2 data sets, then the queries that go into the system, I can put them in by postcode and still get through the connections to the pothole data. Not rocket science, but incredibly useful once it's done, once all the topics and issues are joined up together. So, this is what we're doing. We're building what is essentially an online factory to take all those tasks to clean up the data, break them down into tiny pieces, and make it so that anyone and everyone can help us. There are 4 main sections to this project. The first is crowdsourcing. So for example, when we run into things like a budget code or an acronym from a particular department, being able to go back to the people in that department and say, really quickly, what does this mean? In a way that's not going to get in their way, it'll be quick and easy for them, but then we'll be able to attach that information to the data.
I should just quickly say, we have had lots of civil servants and people working in government actually say, hello, I know nothing about technology, but I want to help. What can I do?
Right.
And the problem is we can't directly connect them to all the people that are doing stuff. But we can have a centralized place where we can say, great, you work here, and we've got a question about here. You might not even know the answer to this, but you'll know the person who does.
Help us figure it out, definitely. Then we have a section on formatting, structuring, and modeling. So that's going to be taking data from CSV, from Excel, whatever, and converting it into one format that we can work with together. It should come out the other end in whatever format is needed. And also then making those connections of location, of topic, connecting schools to the Department of Education, essentially just making sure that the data is as interlinked as possible so that when a developer goes in and says, right, I need to know all there is to know about potholes, there's going to be as much information from other data sets as possible to help them with their query and with their project. The middle section, search, query, and filter tools. We've got to be able to get into the data data store that we're building out of all of this, and have developers be able to pull out whatever it is they need to build their apps and visualizations, which are at the bottom left. And then because this is a crowdsourced project, we need to make sure that everybody who's contributing gets something out of it. For developers, they're keen on the data, fantastic. We can have them help us build it, we can have them help us clean data, that should be great. For particularly civil servants and local government officers and subject matter experts who, as Glyn just said, might not be particularly technical, we need to make this worth their while. And it seems what they're after, not surprisingly, is a view on the data, whether it's their own data that's ordinarily buried in spreadsheets or buried in another department, another team within their organization, or whether it's being able to see what else is going on across the sector or compare their activities to another parallel organizations. So we decided we need to build a site where they can go in and basically search, ask questions, find information about their data without having to be able to construct SQL queries or understand any kind of programming.
And the sort of realization, I didn't originally come to this, and Hadley sort of brought me around to it. Convincing the developers. Okay, that's a very simple 5-second thing. Here's the data you want in machine-readable format. Great, convince the developers, that's over. Convincing the civil servants to keep updating the data, or convincing whoever's got the data to keep it up to date or improve it. At the moment, they're going to have less money, and they're being told to do even more overhead, and they're not seeing necessarily a reward for it. Or at least, they might see a reward for it down the line, but they'd like to be able to say, here's a guaranteed reward, boss, that's why I'm doing this. And then we said, well, what would you want? And they all went, well, if we can actually use the data ourselves, or if we can instantly get some reward for releasing the data. So if they release the data, and suddenly, for say 40% of their queries, they can answer their questions straight away, because a lot of their questions are very, very simple. You know, how many potholes are in my county? How much loo roll do we use? Is my department using more energy than another department? Well, we can answer those questions very, very trivially, easily.
Right, and we're hoping that this will be a tool that will help them, among other things, to appreciate open data as a general concept and how it can help them in their own jobs, regardless of what they happen to be doing. So let's go on to crowdsourcing. I'm not a designer, this is just an example. Oh, and you can't read it.
Yeah.
What a shame. All right, we'll have to read it for you.
Fix that.
So right, the idea is to be able to, as I said, take all these tasks and break them down into really quick, simple questions, 30 seconds at the most. And what this says in the gray bit that you can't read is, hi, you work at the Department for Transport. Can you tell us what 072-529-1092 means in the dataset budget forecasts Q3 2010-11 DFT? And the user has typed in, it means program to improve transport in the Southeast.
Which is actually slightly soul destroying, because you find that there are people that answer all of these without even having to look it up. They know what those codes mean.
We're grateful for that.
Is this a useful answer for you?
Yes, because, well,
What is that, Southeast?
it's
You know
certainly a
what it
start.
is? It's considerably better, from a developer's point of view, than what you started with.
Yeah, but you still can't put it on the map.
No. But you can do something with it when you understand what the data means.
Getting into the regions of the UK is a different data set, but that's part of what we need to plug into all of this, definitely. And the problem is that every organization and every topic has its own way of regioning the country. So we've got to accommodate for that. But that's another conversation. There's going to be a lot of linking going on here. Right, so we're looking at decrypting budget codes and acronyms, as I've been saying. Also being able to add labels and annotations to be able to say, this particular bit of data we discovered 5 minutes after it was published, it had a problem. But there were decisions made on that, and then we went back and corrected it for the next version. So we just need you to know that we're aware this is not accurate. So allowing for those kinds of comments. And then ideally, because these are simple questions, we want to build them into a game. We want to make it fun, we want to make it easy, we want to be able to reward people, whether it's in their professional lives or whether it's being able to tweet out a score or send something to Facebook. But have them sort of not only help us make it viral, but help share their accomplishments with the rest of the world so that they start feeling like it's worth their while in their own communities and their own lives.
Partly it's about not building a perfect solution. Partly it's about building a mechanism that allows you to get later on to a perfect solution. Because at the moment there are, the first problem we used to have was you couldn't get data. And so from a development point of view, if you can't get data, you're absolutely dead. Now you can get the data, but you can't guarantee how much work it's going to take before you can do anything with it, or whether or not you're going to understand bits of the data. So that's the problem we're trying to solve.
Right. And actually that brings up a good point, which is that all of this entire project is open source. And we'll be building the initial sort of alpha version and then opening it up to the community, and really hoping that the flood of interest we've had thus far, hoping that all of you will help too, will be able to make each piece of the project much better and richer and really sort of a usable resource for everyone. And that may end up meaning that we're running out of time. Okay, that may end up meaning that we have multiple games, multiple interfaces, and that's fine. We've talked about this, being able to connect the data based on various topics. We will assign URIs and link the data, make it sort of openly linked where we need to. But basically this is sort of cleaning up the bits of data connections and linking that haven't been done already. And then the last bit to show you is an example of this search site particularly for people in government, but it'll be open to everyone. So this says, what would you like to know? And we've asked how many government employees work in Victoria Street, SW1. It's taken data from the local authority, Westminster Council, from the 2 government departments that are also in, have offices in Victoria Street, and it's added up the end result. And it's producing a reliability score, which tells you how much credibility to give that answer, which should be a combination of how reliable the data was to begin with, and then how much work has been done on it in the cleaning process. Are we in trouble?
Thank you very much.